So, Taylor, we discussed Sarah's situation scrambling to file on April 14th. That's a good reminder for everyone about the importance of planning ahead. But not everyone files based on the April 15th deadline, right, Sam?
Exactly, Alex. Many businesses, especially smaller ones, operate on a fiscal year, which might not align with the calendar year. That's what we'll cover now.
Right. Let's move on to Maria's scenario. She owns a small business and uses a fiscal year ending June 30th. She's a bit unsure about when her tax return is actually due. Taylor, how do you think Maria would figure that out?
Well, we talked about April 15th being the deadline for calendar year filers. So for a fiscal year, it probably shifts, right? Does she just count 4 months from June 30th?
You're on the right track, Taylor. The rule for fiscal year filers is that their return is due by the 15th day of the fourth month after their fiscal year ends. So for Maria, whose fiscal year ends June 30th, we count 4 months forward: July, August, September, October. Her deadline would be October 15th.
So if I understand correctly, it's not about the specific date within the month, just the month itself. Like it wouldn't matter if her year ended June 1st or June 30th, her deadline would still be October 15th.
Precisely. The key is the month the fiscal year ends. Now, Alex, you mentioned a second question for this scenario.
Yes. What are the implications for Maria if her fiscal year deadline, October 15th, happens to fall on a weekend or a holiday?
That's a good question. It would be frustrating to miss the deadline just because it's a Sunday.
The IRS has a rule for that. If the due date falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or a legal holiday, the deadline is extended to the next business day.
So, let's say, hypothetically, October 15th falls on a Saturday.
Then Maria would have until Monday, October 17th to file, right?
Exactly. This weekend holiday rule applies to all filing deadlines, whether it's the standard April 15th or a fiscal year deadline.
This is a good point to recap. For our listeners using a fiscal year, remember that your deadline is the 15th day of the fourth month after your fiscal year ends. And importantly, if that date falls on a weekend or holiday, you get a little extra time to file. This is very different than Sarah's situation, where she just procrastinated. Maria is following the rules. She just needs to know what her specific deadline is.
This reminds me of what we discussed earlier about filing methods. Does the weekend holiday rule apply to both paper filing and e-filing?
Absolutely. Whether you mail your return or file electronically, the extended deadline applies. Just remember, if you mail it, the postmark date determines whether you filed on time. Use registered or certified mail for proof.
Great questions, Taylor. So we've covered how Maria, a small business owner, figures out her filing deadline with a fiscal year end. Now let's look at another fiscal year situation, but with a different twist. Let's consider David, a freelancer juggling multiple income streams. Before we move on, everyone, make a note. Understand your fiscal year end date and mark that specific filing deadline on your calendar. It'll save you a lot of potential stress and penalties down the line.